Okay, I figured this time I'm going to start adding some more sort of rendering bits and pieces. I might add textures, maybe like the ability to make a rectangle on the screen itself, like drawing different things. Also, the concept of a buffered sort of just a image pixels that are then copied into the actual pixels array themselves, just to give it some form of ability to draw out a texture separately and then copy over that data and have it display. So let's give that a go. Let's share screen and done a few to-dos on here and notes ready to get started. So for this, I want to be able to create like a texture field within the main thing, but then this needs to be kind of pulled in from core. I need to be able to load in a texture, and I want to be able to render a texture. That's end goal as such. But that we'll actually need a texture like thing. What I've done is I've drew a little PNG, and I used this to draw it with. I'll bring this over. Just made a PNG in this pixelart.com draw, so you can make it whatever size you want. We can do whatever for that. It's just something to have some graphic data in there to do stuff with. So that being said, let's move forward with that. But I do think there's a few areas where I need to do stuff. So we've got the screen, we've got basically this stuff here: create a copy method, create like a fill rect method, and create some sort of way of rendering textures. So I might do the lowest hanging fruit first. This fill rect shouldn't really require too much craziness to do and implement, and then we'll move forward with doing some other stuff with that. So this is going to be directly in the screen. So it's inside your graphics, inside the screen. So I'm going to be making some sort of rectangle filling thing that updates the pixels. So let's think about this. I'll zoom in a bit so it's easier to look at what I'm doing. So this fill rect method. So let's make a public void fill rect. So to make a filled rectangle. So it needs to start with like a X coordinate, a Y coordinate, a width, and a height. And I also want to take in a color. Right. So this is basically just going to be a nested loop to draw a rectangle of some sort. So let's just say for int yy equals y to start off with. So we've got our starting y. While yy is less than y plus height, then we keep going. So we do y plus. So that's our y coordinate. That same sort of thing with x now. So we'll say for int xx equals this time, it's either going to become, depending upon how we actually approach this. Yeah, we're just going to set it to x. We'll do some if conditions to deal with other things afterwards. So while that's less than x plus width, then x plus plus. So now what we want to do is we want to kind of not draw outside of our bounds of xx, because we kind of don't want this to be kind of weirdly out of bounds of all the things or in a weird position. So what we'll say is if our xx is less than 0, yeah, so we don't want it out of bounds to the left, or xx is greater than or equal to this dot width, then that'd be another out of bounds. Or if our yy is less than 0, or our yy is greater than or equal to this dot height. We don't want to be drawing sort of literally completely out of bounds. If that's the case, then I'm just going to continue to the next iteration. So don't draw anything. Otherwise, I want to set my pixels at the correct coordinate. So we've got the XX and the YY. Now, the problem is we can't just go, hey, I want to set it to XX, YY. That's not a thing. So what we need to do is we need to work out something. So what we want to do is we want to do XX plus YY plus width. So X plus Y times width, sorry. So XX plus YY times this dot width. That will get us the X and Y coordinate cell. And we'll set that equal to the color dot get color. And that's going to kind of set the pixels with that rectangle. So let's see how that goes. I'll save that. And let's go off and do some practice sort of thing with this. Let's think about it. So that's the screen. So that means in theory, we should be able to call that. Do you know what I mean? But how are we going to call it? Think about how we're going to actually do this. So we want to be able to add a fill rectangle type thing to our engine. So we're going to put it in the core. So let's do that. Let's put it in our core. Where's our core gone? Core. So where's our fill rect? And the texture fill rect method. Let's make this fill rect. This is just going to be kind of calling the other one. So it's not really going to be doing much other than passing it onto the screen. So we'll make a protected void fill rect, passing it the same sort of things. So we'll have a int X, int Y, int width, int height. And we want a color. And all this is going to do, it's going to call the screen dot fill rect X, comma Y, comma width, comma height, comma color. And there we go. So now what we can do is in our main, when we're drawing stuff, instead of just we're not rendering the texture just yet. What we'll do is we'll say fill rect, give an X and Y coordinate of 20, 20, a size of let's say 50 or 60, 60, and a color of 0x FF. No, actually, you know what? FF 20 20. They're fairly red, weird. I don't know what color that's going to be, to be honest, but it's going to be something, right? It doesn't seem to like that. I might have to actually add some colors. Because it won't. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make some. I might just add some static sort of preset colors, maybe. I think that might be next sort of object to do. Yeah, I'll do that in the colors. I'll literally add some sort of colors somewhere, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, we'll do that. Let's make them public static, and we'll go into the colors and have these like preset colors that we've got. Yeah. So public static final color. We'll call it I don't know, thingy for now. We can put some real colors in there later. Equals new color, passing it, not texture. Oops. 0x EE. I don't know, 0.5 AA or something. I don't know. Made up that thing randomly. That's the thingy that we're going to use. Let's save that, and I'm just going to pass it that color for now for the name. Now, instead of doing that, I could have said new color in there, to be honest, but color dot thingy. There we go. Pass it the thingy color. I don't even know what color that's going to end up at, but yeah, that will do. So in theory, that's doing that. Let's see where we're at now. See what happens here. Okay. We're not actually rendering that at the moment, are we? It's actually a problem because we don't have really a rectangle rendering type thing. So we've conceptually made the render, but what we haven't done is actually kind of made it persistent. So it's not going to really do that quite right, is it? We need some way of sort of separating those out. So that's going to be something else that we need to think about. But conceptually, that's a lot of the work there. So it's using the fill rect, it's running into that and doing its thing, but we need to add some concept of copying stuff over them. We need that fill rect to be calling that screen one. And then what we need to do is we need some sort of other aspect of it. Let's look in our display. Do we need any other rendering that we need to do? We've done draw image, create buffer strategy. Don't it possibly add scale at some point, but what else have we got? Fill rect. Okay, we'll figure that out because I think the copy method's gonna need to happen and also a few other things for this to work. Yeah, we want to get image pixels ready to. Okay, what I'll do is I'll make another set of pixels. So I'm gonna add image pixels. So let's take this. I like image pixel. And what I want to do is I want to kind of do this for the image pixel. I just want a basic standard int array for the actual pixels. So what I'll do is I'll swap this out. For this pixels, it's just going to be a new int array of width times height. Then the image pixels are going to contain the image stuff. Yeah. So now we've got this image pixels, we've got this pixels. So I think that's kind of done that to do that. That's sorted now. So let's get rid of some of these sort of markings here. So we've got this nice and done that ready for copy now. So we can actually start doing copying and stuff in a minute. Save that. So the next sort of concept here will be literally copying over the stuff. Yeah. So for this, I want to kind of just basically run over every item or every pixel inside the pixel array and copy them over to the other one. So for that, we're kind of, let's think, there shouldn't be anything major for this. It should literally just be copying stuff over. So we'll do that. So where are we? I've got the color, that's clear. That's there. Got to create a copy method. So let's create a copy method. It's going to be a public void copy. And all I want to do is say for int I equals 0, while I is less than the width times height, then I plus plus. So we're just going to go over the entire thing. Then what we say is we just say image pixels at I is equal to pixels at I. Oops. So that's copying over all the pixels. Okay. So we've kind of got this ability to do this. We're now pushing in these things, adding these colors to this thing. So let's save that and let's see if we can do a copy and see if that makes any difference to the rendering. There's possibly there's an issue there. Let's do a copy. Once we've done the fill rect, we want to do a screen.copy and then show. So let's see what happens. Still more moving parts yet, but it's an interesting concept of making sure it runs so it doesn't break or anything else happens or other stuff. There's probably going to be some other issues down the line that we need to deal with. So we've done our copying of stuff, but we still need to kind of be rendering that specific thing eventually. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else we might need for that. So we do want to render a texture eventually as well. That's definitely one thing. We've done the fill rect method. We've done the, oh, we haven't added copy here, actually. That's the point. Oh, did I want to do that during the show? Oh, hang on a minute. I want to do that. I'll probably do it there. That'll keep it clean, I suppose. Okay. So thinking about what it is that we want to kind of do, it's like when we're doing our show, in general, we'd want to do our screen copy there, wouldn't we? Not actually in the watch, because this is kind of where it would contain it in that sense. So that'll happen during the show, just before it gets the image data. And then for the get image, that would update the image itself. So that would be correct. Right, so let's not do this screen copy here. We'll let the show do that, because it's still got to do the whole get the image thing, because that show wouldn't exist at that point, if you know what I mean. So let's make sure it doesn't crash. It's not really having any, yeah, it's a bit slow, but it's not crashing. It's not the most responsive, and it's a little bit, but it's okay. It's an interesting concept there. Right, so it's not the best of the best, I suppose, but it's running. It's not broke. So I don't want to even bother doing that portion of it, because that's just going to see. So in theory, we've got that. Now we need to be able to render some texture, but we can't render a texture because we haven't made a texture. Well, we've made a physical image to load into the texture, but we haven't actually made a texture. Right, so yeah, let's just do it. Let's make a texture class. That's what we're going to do next. Fair few bits to this. So let's, inside graphics, make a new class called texture. Okay, we'll add that to there. Now the texture doesn't need to inherit anything. It's just going to be its own thing. So it wants a private int width and a private int height. So height and width and height. Yeah. It wants its own set of pixels as well. So private int array of pixels. And let's instantiate it. So we'll have a do we want to do? We only ever want to instantiate this when we're loading in a texture, don't we? So this can be private. This should never be instantiated itself on its own for no particular reason. We'll only ever load in a texture. Okay. So texture, and it's going to take in a int width, int height, and an int array of pixels. Okay. I'll set this dot width equals width, this dot height equals height, and this dot pixels equals pixels. Why not call that pixels? Seriously. Typing it square. Right, so then we want to load a texture in. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to make this like a utility function. So it's going to be a public static, and it's going to return a texture. Loading texture. It's going to take in a path. We want to set the width and height to nothing first, and so we've got some internal stuff like that. So int width equals 0, int height equals 0. So those are internal ones. Int array pixels equals null. So I don't want them to be anything just yet. Now I need to make a new buffered image and read in some data. Yeah. So in essence, we need a buffered image. Use image.io to actually read this in. So we can say read. And this will accept all different types of images. For now, I'm just using PNG. So texture dot class dot get resource, passing in the path. Now, there are a few things here that's going on. First off, let's import our buffered image. Then we've got the problem of this could throw an exception. So I think we can just surround it with try catch for now. So it's up to you to decide what you want to do with that. But that I'll surround this with try catch and I'll start doing some stuff. So we've got our image, it's loading in a file and it's dealing with like a runtime exception if it's unable to get it or whatever. And I want to set the width equal to the images dot get width. So that way it's got a specific size. Why not make a width? I've got a width to enter. There we go. And the same with the height. So height equals image dot get height. Then what I want to do is I want to say my pixels are equal to a new int array of size width times height. And then what we want to do is we want to get the RGB of the image and put all of the pixel of the image data inside pixels. So we can do image dot get RGB from the 0, 0 to the width and height, passing it to pixels with a start position offset 0 and a scan size of the width. So that's the scan. It's going sort of thing. Okay, so that's kind of utilizing the pixels array. Then we need to return, at the end of this, we'll return a new texture, passing in the width and the height, and also the pixels. There we go. So we now have this whole texture created every time we load one in. And it'll just return us that texture. We also then want our getters. So we'll have like a get width, get height, and get pixels for this. So we'll have public int get width, return width, public int get height, and return height, and a public int array get pixels, and we'll return pixels. That's why I said return there. Okay, so now we've got this sort of texture class. So we can think about the idea of actually sort of rendering stuff now. We can think about how are we going to kind of render the texture in general. So what things are we going to need the texture in? How are we going to kind of get this texture? Do we want it in the engine, or do we want it in our main? We've got to think about those sort of constraints. If we were to have it in the engine, then it means that that engine would constantly, every system that we ever build out from that would have to have a texture, which seems a little bit overkill. We only want it in to have textures if it needs textures. So we don't necessarily have to put texture in every single application that we build with this. In which case, that means that we could just put it in the main. That seems like the way to go with this. So in that situation, let's go into the main and create a load in a texture. Coming off here. We probably want to have a texture field, so that's there. So let's create a texture field. Texture. Obviously, you'll call these something different depending upon what the texture was for and stuff like that. Just for now, this is more just testing and playing with stuff, getting things to do stuff. Texture equals texture dot load, and we're just loading in that image. It was img dot png, I called it. Right, so that's loading the texture. Then you'd want to kind of render the texture. So instead of this fill rect, let's jump straight into the concept of render texture. The reason what I wanted to do. So to render the texture, though, we need to be able to render the texture. So what are we using to render this texture? So where are we going to make this render texture? And also the render texture would take in a texture. An X and Y coordinate. Now we need to build out this render texture. We didn't do it in the core yet, did we? Where are we? Core. Yeah, we've still got to create a render texture method. Yeah, we're calling it at the moment, so we need to actually create it. So there's more steps to this concept of what I want to get done, which is not a problem because we're just playing about. We're doing live code. We're just kind of having a session where I'm drinking coffee or tea and relaxing and coding something up. We don't have any major league time frame for this or anything. It's just messing about with stuff. So again, sort of same thing that we did with the fill rect. We can just kind of wrap the render texture from the screen. So protected void render texture, and that needs to take in a texture. It needs to take in int X and int Y, as in where we're going to put it. So then we can do a screen dot render texture, passing that the texture, the X and the Y. Right, so now let's take a look at our main. Why is it not liking render texture? Did I not write a render texture in the screen even yet? Okay, not a problem. That's going to be kind of like a bit like the fill rect or the thingy. So that's fine. So let's have a look. I've made the copy method in fill rect, but I didn't make a render texture. Oh, that's probably why. Might be an idea, isn't it? We're going to call it. Let's create it too. That's always a good sort of idea when you're creating any of these things. I mean, there's a lot more that we could build out on this, but I just want to get some sort of a texture running for this particular portion of what we're doing. So in essence, realistically, this can be a void one. It just takes in texture and in text and int Y. So let's say public void render texture, taking in a texture, taking in a X and taking in a Y. So this, again, it's similar to the concept of what we did with the fill rect, with a few minor differences. So let's say for int, we'll do the YY thing again. equals 0 this time. And while YY is less than texture dot get height. Did I make those public? Oh. Sorry. Didn't spell texture right. Typos for the win. Then we do a Y plus plus. And then we'll nest in another thing. But what we do want to do is we need kind of a pixel data here. Now, the problem is we've got this X and Y are kind of like these offsets. So we need to kind of keep track of the actual pixel, which will actually be our current Y. Our current YY plus our Y that was passed in. So think of Y like the offset. So we'll say, okay, in that case, I'll int Y pixel is equal to YY plus Y. Then we're doing our inner sort of loop. So for int XX equals 0. Well, XX is less than texture dot get width XX plus plus. Again, we need to now get our X pixel. So int xpix equals XX plus X. Then we can say we're literally going to do the same sort of thing as we did in the if condition up there at the top there, the if blah, blah, blah. But instead of XX and YY, we're going to have X pix and Y pix. So I'm going to literally do that continue bit there. Copy that for every single one, just in case. So that X is going to turn into X pix and an X pix and a Y pix and a Y pix. There we go. So now I've got that. Now we want to say that my pixels at X pix plus Y pix times this dot width is equal to texture dot get pixels. And here's where we need to kind of do that. We've got the whole of the pixels, but now we need to index into it. So we need to say, well, I want my XX plus YY times the texture dot get width. Okay, so that's going to get the correct pixels that we want, and it's going to move them into that pixels. So in essence, that is there. So if I save this, now we take a look at our main, our render texture is finally there. All good. Right, okay. This may, or I might have missed something in this. I'm trying to think. There's some other stuff that I do need to do anyway to get this fully working, but let's see, is there anything else? I've done the render texture method there, so we'll get rid of these to-dos as I do them as such. That's done. Don't think there was anything else. Was there nothing in window? I don't need to be. I'm not going to bother adding scale yet. That's not necessary for anything specific. We've got our own colors, got our screen, we got that. No doubt I've missed something, but let's just run it anyway. Let's see what we get. No, it's working. How cool is that? And it's working with these keys. Look, we can kind of do, we've still got our key input, but we've got this little dinky texture here. So what we will do, just as an aside, oops, just as an aside, we'll literally go off here. Let's make this, oops, do a little bit of something else here. So let's close that off. Let's file new. Let's make a new thing of like 200 by 200 or something mad. Make a new drawing. Okay. So we've got this 200 pixel by 200 pixel thing. Let's draw something mad. I don't know. Yeah, why not? We'll do this. A little square in. Got a fill bucket, right? Let's fill that in. Let's fill that in. Let's do this and draw another thing and fill that in. Randomly drawing some weird craziness, I guess. I think that's it. Maybe, I don't know. Do another one, just for the hell of it. Fill that in. Let's close that advert. Let's go with that. Why not? So save drawing. We'll save as PNG. 200 by 200. Download the PNG. So what I'm then going to do is show in folder. And find it. It's going up. There we go. Showing in folder. I'm going to actually rename this to, I don't know. Whoops. Let's not open it. Let's just rename it. Rename this to be, I don't know, img2.png. Why not? So now what I want to do is I want to copy this and go into my home folder, my projects, my games, my app engine, my res, and paste that in. There we go. So now we've got our new image that we've just slapped together quickly. And it should be theoretically inside res. Yep, it's there now. So now instead of that texture that we're doing, let's change up the texture to be IMG, was it 2? And let's see that it's actually just loading in whatever texture we pass it. So now we've got this weird texture here. There we go. We can still change the background color. There we go. So we now have the ability to have that. What we could do, I suppose, if we wanted to be pedantic, is maybe make, for now, int player X and it int player Y and equals 20 and 20. Yeah. So we're kind of putting it in this player X and this player Y and go like, instead of putting that X and Y there, we'll have this dot player X and then this dot player Y. And then during the update, instead of, well, as well as changing the color, why not? This dot player X. So what are we doing with the X? Hang on, that's up. That's not the X, is it? No, that's the height. So that's Y, isn't it? I'm not going crazy on this, am I? Oh dear. All good fun times. Just contrived randomness at this point, just to play about with stuff. Yeah, so the up is going to be a Y, I think. So it's going to play a Y. Minus, let's say. See if this works. And down is going to be this dot player Y plus plus. See if that works. Don't know how fast this is going to run, by the way, so I haven't really limited this in any way. So it's going to be this dot player X minus, and this dot player this dot player X. I have no idea how fast or slow this is going to go, by the way. So this could just go flying off the screen, or it could just go super slow. Let's run that now. So now the player's actually sitting there. When I'm moving right, whoa, left, up, down, cool. A bit too fast, really, isn't it? But we have a game. It's my dude flying across the screen with weird colors going crazy. How cool is that? So we have probably not. Yeah, I need to limit this. The updates need to be limited, so it's got a constant, nice, not too fast coming. It's running like, look how many. That must be running quite a few frames per second to do that. But how cool is that? We can go off screen and not error. We can just flip it nicely. We can move around. We can go diagonal. I have to be very careful about what I'm pressing because it's just so fast. But we have now got loadable textures. We have the ability to control something if we wanted to. And we have a window on the screen. That's a nice little point to have a break at, I think. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll have a little quick tea break now, and I'll see you in the next one.